Okay, I admit I wasn't able to do it. I always try to get the topic at hand contained within about 10 minutes. Sometimes it's 9 minutes, sometimes it's 11 or 12, but right around the 10-minute mark, I try to get everything contained. And that includes our gratitude to Belay, that includes some introductory information, a wrap up. It includes all those things. Uh, but I couldn't do it this time because I'm beginning to see something in churches that I want to talk about. It is something that I did not do as a pastor, and it's something that I have not always recommended as a consultant, but I will be recommending it more and more. What is that? It is turning your new members class into a Great Commission class. In other words, when someone comes to be a part of your church and they're going through the entry point that you may have a different name for it, but I'm for just the sake of clarity, I'm just going to say a new members class. How can you turn that into an effective Great Commission class where those who come through it are not only becoming acclimated to the church, what it does, what they should do, the expectations, but also begin the process of having a Great Commission heart? That's what we'll talk about in this episode. In the next episode, turning your new members into a Great Commission, your new members class into a Great Commission class. As always, we thank Belay, the productivity experts, Belay, the people who just in many ways in the Christian world kind of invented remote staffing and at least brought it to the level that it is now. They're an incredible organization. They do incredible work, and we're so proud that they are the only sponsor of the Church Answers podcast. Get their download called Four Costly Mistakes for Churches. You can get it by going to Thom at 55123. So text Thom at 55123. Okay, let's talk about these two parts. And the reason I want to take the two episodes is because I want to talk about several aspects that are foundational. More and more, I have been doing what I call simple church growth consultations. Let me explain that. A simple church growth consultation takes some aspects of the simple church process that Eric Geiger and I wrote about in 2007. Clarity, movement, alignment, focus. For those of you who've read Simple Church, and there have been hundreds of thousands of you that have, you know what I mean when I use those words: clarity, movement, alignment, focus. Clarity is you have to state clearly what the church expects of you. Movement, you have to have a process by which they are actually going from one of those to another. Alignment, the ministries all have to be aligned and being redundant there with the purpose of the church. And then focus, you need to keep what you need to keep and then eliminate what you don't need to keep. Now, that's a quick summary of Simple Church. It's way too quick. We wrote an entire book on it. But I've been doing the Simple Church growth consultation so much to the point that I began this month, and when I say this month, I'm talking about January 24. I began this month actually taking a beta group through training them about the Simple Church growth process. Now, why am I using that information about talking about turning your new members class into a Great Commission class? Because in these consultations, there are some churches that I found out have a good new members class. And by the way, what is the purpose of a new members class? To give information on the church, to set expectations of church members. That's often left out in new members classes, and maybe even to begin the process of assimilation. So I love new members classes that do have all three purposes: information, expectation, and assimilation. Now, why do you have a new members class? Because it sets the stage for what church members will be like from that point forward. It is not a silver bullet that solves every potential problem in the church and makes your ministries full and makes people volunteering all the time, but it is a lot better than not having some kind of entry point class. When I wrote a book many, many years ago, before new member classes were hardly even mentioned, I wrote a book called High Expectations. At the time, seemed a little bit radical when I wrote it, but we got to raise the bar about what it means to be a part of the church. I mean, for many churches, it doesn't mean anything. It means signing a card, walking an aisle, raising a hand, or just saying you want to be a member. That's not the 1 Corinthians 12 approach to being a part of the church. So I am a strong advocate of the new members class. The book that I wrote has been, and I say this, it sounds boastful, but I'm just grateful to God. The book that I wrote, I Am a Church Member, has been used in more new members classes this in the past decades than any other. Millions of copies of this book have been sold. And the reason for it, because it states with clarity what it means to be a part of a church in a biblical way. So I want to say without equivocation that a church without a new members class or some kind of entry point class is a church that is more likely going to fail in a number of areas. They're going to fail in getting volunteers. They're going to fail in seeing people engage in worship. They're going to fail in getting them into small groups or Sunday school classes. Why? Because they did not set the expectations on the front end. I know of one denomination that has recently said a member in good standing will be someone who is in a small group. Not just that, but that's one of them. And that's one of the few times I've ever heard that. A small group of some type of class, like a Sunday school class, some type of group. They're in groups. They are able to do that because that is a front end issue. So without a doubt, I believe that the new members class is a vital part, whatever you call it, the entry point, whatever, is a vital part of the health of a church. It sets the stage of what these members will do, and it sets the tone of how they will do them. When I began to hear that some churches use their new members class to also prepare members for the Great Commission, in other words, reaching people with the gospel of Christ, my first reaction was, why have I never thought about that? This is not my idea, but I'm glad there are a few church leaders out there that were doing that. In other words, their new members class was also a Great Commission class. Now, here's the thing about it. Most of the new members classes, of which I am aware, only last 2, maybe 3 hours. That's about it. And you say, well, how can you get all the things that you need to do in 2 to 3 hours? You can't. Quite frankly, if you tried 2 to 3 days, you wouldn't have enough time. It's a beginning point. It's an introductory point. And many churches, let me say it this way, some churches are being able to introduce not only the expectations of membership, but also the expectations to be a Great Commission Christian. There was so much that attracted me to this because, number one, a Great Commission Christian is a fruitful Christian. He or she is bearing fruit by sharing the gospel in whatever way God provides that opportunity. Number two, a Great Commission Christian is thinking beyond himself or herself. And so automatically they're for the greater good of the church. And number three, a Great Commission Christian is simply being obedient. That's the bottom line. The Bible tells us to go and make disciples of all nations. Jesus does. Jesus, before he ascended, said, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. Acts 1:8. Jesus tells us that we are to be Great Commission Christians. So I began to find out about these churches that had new members classes that had a significant emphasis on you must be a Great Commission member of our church as well. And I heard that, and of course I told you my first reaction. My first reaction was very clear. Why haven't I thought about that? That was kind of the prideful reaction. And then the second reaction was, wow, this could be this could be the start of a revolution where we're not only telling people how to be healthy church members inwardly, but we're pointing them outwardly. Now, there's probably some points of curiosity. How did they do it? What did they do? What is the content of it? Well, I would just say on the front end, there was not uniformity in any of those answers, but there were patterns. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause this particular episode. I don't always want to say you got to come back to another episode, but I'm going to just encourage you to come back to episode number 120. And we're going to get into the what of the new members class and becoming a Great Commission Christian. I think you'll be fascinated by it. I have been gratified. I think you will as well. All right, we'll let it end there. Come back to the episode number 120. And always thank you, Belay, for being our sponsor, for being our only sponsor from the very beginning. We're grateful for you. Check out once again their download, Four Costly Financial Mistakes for Churches. Text Thom at 55123. Text Thom at 55123. Hope I have you on the edge of your seat. I just can anticipate your face and your reaction. You cannot wait for episode 120. We're releasing it this week, so now you can go listen or watch it. We'll see you or hear from you in that episode.